Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're decoding the hidden mechanics of corporate power, and we're going to reveal why your workplace transparency, it might actually be your absolute biggest liability. You know, we're always told honesty is the best policy, right? But when you're navigating a really complex professional landscape, showing all your cards can leave you incredibly vulnerable.
Let's kick things off with a question that honestly haunts a lot of ambitious professionals who are feeling stuck and just totally overworked. Have you ever felt like you're giving 100% only to be rewarded with, well, everyone else's unfinished tasks?
Look at this sentiment we pulled straight from a frustrated professional on a Reddit forum. It perfectly captures what we call the hard worker's trap. Like this user pointed out, doing your job transparently and efficiently, it literally just leads to being penalized with more work. When you operate as a totally open book and put your competence and capacity on display for everyone to see, you basically become the default dumping ground for extra tasks. Meanwhile, your less transparent peers are just sliding by under the radar.
So, the strategic antidote to this trap? We find it in Robert Greene's Law 3. It argues that keeping your rivals off balance is the ultimate way to protect your efforts. The law is incredibly simple. Conceal your intentions. This is a fundamental shift, really. It takes you from being purely reactive to becoming highly proactive in exactly how you manage your professional image and your workload.
Here's our roadmap for mastering these dynamics today. First, the hard worker's trap. Then, the power of concealment, red herrings and decoys, the strategic smokescreen, and finally, the reversal of the law.
Section 1. The hard worker's trap, why transparency fails. Let's consider the contrast between two very different types of employees. First, you have the transparent professional. This person is constantly broadcasting their feelings, their capacity, their goals. And by doing that, they're inadvertently inviting defensive maneuvers and extra burdens from their colleagues. On the flip side, we have the strategic professional. This person understands a core truth, which was actually highlighted in a recent Shut Up and Yoga article, that we are all locked in a game of power, whether we actually like it or not. By remaining totally inscrutable, this strategic player controls the tempo of their own career.
Section 2. The power of concealment. The crucial point here is that if your competitors, or even your bosses, know your true plans, they are going to quickly exploit your predictability and stop you right in your tracks. Human beings just instinctively trust appearances, so if you go around telling everyone you're gunning for a specific promotion, you immediately give your rivals the opportunity to prepare a defense, outshine you, or just straight up sabotage your efforts. Make no mistake, predictability is the absolute enemy of power. To combat that predictability, Law 3 is essentially broken down into two distinct strategies: actively distracting your rivals with decoys or lulling them into complacency with a smokescreen. Now, these are basically two sides of the same coin, but they're deployed very differently, depending on the specific corporate environment you find yourself in.
Section 3. Red herrings and decoys.
A red herring relies on one simple fact: people can only focus on so much at any given time. Historically, business titans like John D. Rockefeller used this flawlessly. When Rockefeller wanted to build his massive oil monopoly, he knew that openly buying out small oil companies would just start a massive defense war in the industry. So instead of going after the oil directly, he laid a brilliant red herring. He secretly bought the railway companies that transported the oil. By the time his rivals realized they had absolutely no way to ship their product, it was already too late. He sprung the trap without fighting a single battle over the oil itself. Translating that into a modern corporate scenario, you can actually map out a deception over time. Imagine a situation where you and a rival are both angling for influence. Month 1, you actively feign intense interest in a highly visible but ultimately minor project. Month 2 comes around, and you let your rivals focus all of their competitive energy on fighting you for that decoy project. Then, boom, month 3 hits. While they're totally exhausted and distracted on this wild goose chase, you quietly secure the actual high-value target account you wanted all along.
Section 4. The strategic smokescreen. Now, unlike active distraction, a smokescreen works by maintaining a really bland, unreadable exterior. It's a comfortable and familiar front that allays all suspicions. Surprisingly, the paranoid and wary are actually the easiest people to deceive. Because if you can win their trust in just one mundane area, you end up creating a thick screen of smoke that completely blinds their view of your true ambitions. We call this the mechanics of the bland front, and it requires 3 simple steps: approach, pattern, and strike. The 19th century robber baron Jay Gould absolutely mastered this. First, his approach. He would corner a market.
Then the pattern. He allowed himself to be bought out, and he did it over and over until the directors were completely lulled into expecting it. Finally, the strike. Once their guard was totally down, Gould launched a sudden bloody takeover and seized the entire company.
In your own career, you can deploy a smokescreen using these exact same tactics. First, maintain an unreadable poker face. Next, cultivate an air of honesty in a minor area. You might even make a noble or helpful gesture that subtly implies your boss's superiority. Or you can appear to support an idea that is totally contrary to your true sentiments. By supporting an opposing idea, or just making someone feel secure, you completely blind them to the fact that you're quietly maneuvering for a major promotion right under their nose. You look like the perfect supportive team player, while secretly holding all the strategic cards.
Section 5. The reversal of the law.
Now, strategy is all about context, right? If you already have a reputation in your office as a cunning deceiver or a highly aggressive ladder climber, continuing to play naive is just going to make you look like a total hypocrite. If people already suspect you're up to something, throwing up a smokescreen will only make them hypervigilant, which severely limits your room to maneuver.
The reality here is that as you achieve more success, it becomes increasingly difficult to hide your ambition. When your colorful smokescreen wears thin over time, it's often way better to just own up to it and play the honest rogue. A great historical example of this is P.T. Barnum. Once the public caught on to his elaborate hoaxes, he didn't try to play innocent anymore. He fully embraced his reputation as a grand deceiver, even published a tell-all book, and the public ended up loving him even more for his sheer audacity. So sometimes leaning into your reputation is absolutely the most powerful move you can make.
So I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder as you navigate your own workplace dynamics. Are you consciously controlling your professional narrative? Or is your predictable transparency allowing others to dictate your workload and your future? Start utilizing the power of the smokescreen and take back that control.